In this video, I'm going to share with you everything that you need to know about how to use sub-items within Monday.com. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Tara. I'm the founder of a company called Simple Day. We've helped hundreds of companies get started with Monday.com. If you need help with a custom implementation, my contact information is in the description below. I look forward to meeting with you. And now let's dive into sub-items. Before we get started talking about sub-items, I want to explain the structure of a board. Now, it's important to know that there actually are two different kinds of boards that we're going to be looking at in order to understand sub-items. So the first, we're going to start off really simply with a regular board. As you can see over here, I have a standard board. This is a simple task board where we simply add tasks to. Now, the structure of this board is that there's one group called Open Tasks, and then there's different items. So you can see all of these things that I've now checked, 9 different tasks or items are listed on this board. So each item layer really, is either a parent item or you could just call it an item. Now, when we want to talk about sub-items, so the sub-items live under these parent items. In this kind of board, you can only have an item layer and a sub-item layer. In a few minutes, I'm going to show you another kind of board, which is new to Monday.com, that you can have multiple sub-items, but we're going to start here first. So if I want to create a sub-item, I have a few different ways to do it. The first time that I want to create a sub-item, I can click on this downward caret and I can simply add a sub-item. So here I can click, let's say my first item is test, and I've created my first sub-item. If I want to add another one, I simply can write here, and here this is test number 2. And you can see very clearly I've created the sub-items. Now, what you'll notice that is different than the other items is I have this little 2 over here, because that's telling me how many sub-items I have for this item. You can also see that this caret is now darker than the other ones. So it's just a visual way to see that there's more sub-items. So here you can see I have 2 different sub-items. Now, let's take a step back and talk about the columns within the sub-items. The item level and the sub-item level can have different columns. You don't need to have the exact same columns for both of them. So here you can see I have, for example, Batman, Robin, a status, a due date. And on my sub-item level, I just have status and people. Just like you add columns to the item level, you can also add columns to the sub-item level. So I simply click on this plus, and then I can choose from here, or I can click on more columns, and the column center opens, and I can add whichever columns I want to a sub-item. But you may have noticed that there's something different within the sub-items. I also have this option to copy the parent columns. Now, if I click on this, it's basically telling me, do you want to copy some of your parent items to your sub-items? So I'm going to show you how that works. If I click on that, I can decide which column I want to copy. So let's say for this example, I'm going to choose type, and I'm going to hit copy. And they're just reminding me that they're not synced, like these 2 are totally separate columns. And now you can see that I have type here with all of these options, and it essentially copied this type button with all of these options. So if I want, technically, I can copy everything on the item level to the sub-item level. However, if you want to have totally different columns, you can have totally different columns. Now, within the sub-items, there's a few different things that I can do. I can choose all of the sub-items. So you see here, I just clicked on this box and I chose these sub-items. And the options that you can do here are very similar than what you can do with an item level. I can duplicate them, I can archive, I could delete it, convert, which I'm going to get to in a minute. I can move them. I have Sidekick and I have apps. Pretty similar to items. The biggest difference is that I can convert it to an item. So if I decide that I don't want these to be sub-items anymore, I want to be item level, I can do that anyway. I just have to map which columns go where, and I can convert them. So now you can see that these 2 new sub-items have been converted to a regular item. Now, if I click on this, I can also go backwards and I can convert it to a sub-item. I would need to choose which item I want it to be under. Again, you would have to map the columns. And you can see that it's going to be converted. And here I have one sub-item because I was moving it back and forth. You also have the option to move the sub item to a different place. So if I click on the sub item, you'll see that these options will show up and I have the option of move to. Once I click on that, I can move it to a different item within this board. So let's say I want my test sub item now to be a sub item of test 2. And you can see that it was easily moved over here. Now, if I want to delete sub items, I simply can click on it and I can delete it. I want to show you one of the coolest features of sub items that I personally use all the time whenever I'm working with sub items. So let's pretend that we have multiple sub items here. Okay, so let's just make one more sub item. So we have 3 sub items and they all have different statuses. Okay, and what we want to do is, without having to always open sub items, because sometimes maybe you're using sub items for a lot of different items on your board, I want to easily see what's going on the sub item level. So what I can do is I can actually roll up column within the sub items to the item level. So if I click on these 3 dots, I have this option here, show summary in parent item. If I click on that, you can see that I have a new column that was added here, and this is a summary of my sub items. A lot of times this is really great because you can see, how many sub items you've completed. I've also used this a lot of times. Maybe you have budgets. So all your sub items can be like all the things that you've spent within that budget. And then you can roll up the amounts and then you can use that amount in a formula. There's a lot of different use cases where you would want to roll this information up to the item level. But essentially here, what we did is we rolled it up to the item level. So this is your basics of everything that you need to know about sub items. Now, I want to show you something brand new that Monday just implemented. Like I said, on this board, I can only have 1 layer of sub items, but Monday added a new feature that I actually have a new kind of board where I can add multiple layers of sub items. If I click on this plus button and I go to board, you can see here that I have something called a new multi-level board. So I'm going to create this one. I'm just going to call it sub items and let's create it. Now, unfortunately, as of right now, you can't switch back and forth from like a regular board to a multi-layer board. As far as I know, maybe they'll develop this in the future, but right now you don't have this option. Now, let's just see what we have here. So I didn't do anything. You saw I just created this board. You can see here that I have the item level, I have a sub item level, and then I have a second sub item level. So I have 2 layers of sub items. Last I heard is that you can have up to 4 sub items with an item level. So a total of 5, but that may change. So I'm just giving you a heads up. Now you can see what this did here is that if I close this, remember we had that roll up, it actually automatically rolled up the different sub items for me, which is kind of nice that it's automatically there. Sub items over here, just opening them, they actually behave a little bit differently than on the main boards. So if you come over here, you can see that they actually have the same columns. They don't have the different column structure that we had in a single layer of sub items. If you look here, like if I want to add a new column, let's just add a people column. So you see that they're on all layers of this item. Like I don't have the same options that I had in a single sub item board. I know it's a little confusing. I do think that this is something that's newer to Monday. Like I said, they recently launched it a couple months ago. So I'm assuming that this feature is going to get a little more sophisticated over time. But essentially you can see how we have 2 different kinds of boards depending on how many layers of sub items that you need. Now, I want to talk about automations that you can do with sub items because there's actually a lot that you can do. Over time, there's been, I think, a huge improvement with the automations within sub items. So I want to talk about those. Now, let's go back to our sub item board and we're going to go to automate and we're actually going to go to create a custom automation. Now, if I click on when this happens, remember that's our trigger. If I just put in sub item, you can see that I have the option for when sub item is created. Okay, that used to not exist. So now I have that. And then I can add to this, let's just say move item to group, or I can, let's do something else. Let's see what else we got under sub item itself. So here it's just because I have a lot of other of these. Let's just do change status. So here you can see change status, but if I scroll down here, you can see that I have a sub item status, okay? So a lot of these options for the triggers or the actions that you may want to do, you can also scroll and you can select a column. Let's just say that I want to change a date, right? So let's do the same thing. So I can do date. So I can do set date, and then I don't have a due date in my sub items, but if I can add a new column and I can do this. So I have a lot of options within the sub item level of automations. Now let's go back here because we also can do like when status changes. So when status changes to something, and again, I can click on this and I can choose my sub item status, okay? So there's a lot more options of things that you can do within sub items within automations. Now, another relatively new feature of Monday is called the AI workflows. I want to just show you a workflow that actually just how you can set it up for sub items. So if I go over here and I go to workflows, so we're just going to call this one sub items. And I just want to show you some of the ideas. You actually could be a lot more sophisticated with workflows once you learn how to use them than with automations. So here, if I'm going to search for sub items, so you can see, look at all these options I have that automatically showed up. When a sub item is created, deleted, archived, when a sub item column changes, when any sub item column changes. We have some of these options in the regular automations, but some of them we don't have. If you look over here, you can see this side little icon of a sub item showing you what you can do with sub items. There definitely are more options that you can do when you're working with workflows, but depending on your account and how many workflows you have, I recommend checking both of them out. So let's just say we would start here when sub item is created, and then we're going to choose our sub item board. And then I can decide what I want to do. Now, standard workflows is I have the option to choose an action, if this or that, multi-branch. Like there's a lot of different things that I can do here that you can't do within automation. So these just make sub items much more powerful. Now let's just hit an action and we're going to search for sub item just because I want to show you how many options you have. So see here, everything with these icons about sub items are things that you can do. Like you can create an update in a sub item. You can notify someone. It's a little bit easier to use these AI workflows in order to build whatever you want with the sub items. Now, that being said, I think that there's a lot of different use cases where people need sub items to track information in an easier way because you can visually see it in this item/sub item level. I definitely recommend checking out these different automations and workflows. That way you could build, whatever you want within the sub items to make your workflow more efficient. And if you're just getting started with Monday.com and need some help getting started, I'll see you in the next video that's linked above, all about getting started with Monday.com in our beginner's guide. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this video, and remember to subscribe to receive tips and tricks on how to use Monday.com. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.